Welcome to the Future of Parenting Summit. I am your host, Dr. Cheryl Kam, the founder of the Vibrant Life Academy. I'm pleased to announce that this experience is sponsored by the Sleep Lab. Remember to use this code CHILLMOM to enjoy 15% off your first order.
Welcome everyone to the Future of Parenting Summit. I'm your host, Dr. Cheryl Kam, and today I'm so pleased to bring you Naomi Aldort, who is a parenting author, a speaker, and a counselor. She wrote the book Raising Our Children, Raising Ourselves, and this has been published in 20 different languages. Her main work is to guide parents via Zoom and Skype lessons, as well as face-to-face workshops. So without further ado, Naomi, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time, and we're going to have, I look forward to the chat that we're going to have.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So, you see, Naomi, the first thing that kind of struck me with you is that you've been doing this for decades and decades and decades, and, I would love for us to hear more about your own journey with how you came into this work, because I feel that there are a lot of personal stories and personal journey that kind of weaved in, and now this is your life's work. It's really the personal story that pulled me to you, but then also for our viewers, if you go to her website and her Facebook group, you'll see there's a wealth of information. I mean, there's a ton of resources as well that we can look through to help us on our journey for a harmonious family and for a more peaceful and enjoyable life as parents and as guides for our children. So Naomi, tell me a little bit more about your life, as a parent, and how it all started.
Well, it actually started before I was a parent myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was a piano teacher, a musician, and the parents of my students started telling me that they're getting therapy out of the piano lessons. Mm-hmm. And that they're getting, one family specifically said, we're getting more results now than we did in 7 years with a therapist. And they asked me to give them sessions, and I told them, look, I'm not a therapist, but we could meet as long as we limit it and we know exactly what we want to achieve. And if we don't achieve it before 10 sessions, then fire me. Like, I don't want to do something I'm not really skillful at. But I knew what I was doing in the lessons. I knew I was doing more than piano lessons. So I did work with them, and they did tell me the results were sensational. Then they, like I said, in a few sessions, more than 7 years with a psychotherapist that worked with their child and with them. So that kind of got me started to be interested in the subject, but still I didn't do it professionally until I had already 3 children myself. And I wrote for magazines, just my own, studies. I studied lots and lots just by myself from books. Awesome people, awesome writers from about parenting, homeschooling, psychology. And I started writing, and when my articles were immediately accepted by Mothering magazine and other magazines around the world, I was invited to public speak, and then people would start calling me with questions. And this one woman was calling me every week and spending about an hour on the phone with me. That was before internet. And then one day she said, Naomi, I should pay you. I'm calling you every week, and you are changing my life, and it's so helpful. So that's when I started realizing that in addition to piano lessons and voice lessons sometimes, that I need to start looking at this more seriously, at what I'm doing here. So it was really just a response to demand, response to need. I wasn't planning to do that. I was always very interested, and I studied these things from age 22 or so, or before 20. When I was in university, I read the book by A.S. Neal, the psychologist, who started the first democratic school, Summerhill, and he wrote a book about that, and all about psychology education. And I was very young when I read that, and that was huge for me. I really got so much out of it that by the time I was pregnant with my first child, I already while pregnant, looked at what am I going to do for education. And I was clear that I'm not going to do the mainstream. Doesn't mean that you can't use mainstream. I'm not dogmatic about what you do. But I was already totally embedded in the subject in a deep, deep way. So it didn't start with my children. It started way, way before.
Can you spell out A.S. Neil and his book just for the purpose
The
of the
book is
audience?
Summerhill. It's one
Summerhill?
word, Summerhill. And A.S. Neil, so A.S. Neil is, I think, Neil. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. And I want to cycle back to what you said at first as well about piano teaching and the fact that the kids received some level of therapy, or at least they were healing through your lessons with them. Tell us a little bit more. I mean, I can't quite imagine what went on, or what is it they were healing from? You know, was it that their emotional balance was improving?
I don't remember, and because I didn't intend it in a, it's like something about who I am, about validating their feelings. Like, okay, I remember one child who obviously was extremely anxious and scared. It was obvious that there was either abuse in the home or severe discipline and restrictions, and the child wasn't feeling safe or secure. So just spending half an hour twice a week with me, where I tell her that it's all right to make mistakes, and give her a sense that she's valued and that she can, do at her level whatever she's doing. She wasn't becoming, I knew musically, this is not a future pianist. Just enrich her musically and make it, something that she can love and enjoy doing. And so my way of being that affirm how, who she is, and that she can just be herself, and that she doesn't have to feel frozen and tested when she plays for me a piece that she learned, that I tell her in advance, it's all right to make mistakes. And, this is just, we're having a good time here and we're learning something extremely beautiful. And you do with it what you want. So I think situations of this kind, it definitely relaxed her, but there were lots of variations. We could spend the whole interview on that, and I'll probably gradually remember more things, but I think we have too much to cover probably.
Well, even bringing out that example itself just gives us a flavor of how healing we can be if we simply detach from the outcomes that we place on the child. When you send to music class, typically there is an outcome-driven thing there, and what I'm here
time for that, Cheryl. There's time for outcome-driven when it's driven by the child and when the child wants that kind of guidance. It really depends. This particular girl was sent for piano lessons by her parents, not by her free will. And later on, I didn't even accept students unless it was their desire. So it had to be their project, not the parent project. So this was in the beginning. But the principle is that what she experienced being with me, probably, I'm guessing, because I never had a talk with her later as an adult, because I don't even live in the same place anymore. But I assume what she experienced with me is some kind of a relief, like, oh, I can just be here. I can just learn and understand what I understand and not understand what I don't understand, and just say what I feel about the music or my discomfort or whatever it is, that it's just all right to be me in this time.
Do you remember how old she was? Was she a toddler or
9?
9.
Yeah. But the other girl whose mother that they took sessions with me was 11. I remember that because it was a memorable situation. But I was in a different city, in a different place. So my articles got published. I started to be asked to counsel, and I started to be asked to speak, give workshops, be interviewed on radio. TV. So it just kind of rolled by itself. I still don't do anything in terms of publicity.
Yes.
I make no effort. I'm here and people find me.
Absolutely. And there's a beauty in being able to do that. Like I said, this outcome driven life and this like sort of push and trying to, engineer so much of it. I think that your being itself is sort of that, I'm here and I'll just do my best. And because you're so open to that and you respond to need, right?
Mm-hmm.
That just draws the genius out of you, and that also draws people to you. And I know it's a little bit off topic with parenting here, but then I just really love that approach because I mean last year I did the Future Health Leadership Summit, and actually this topic is a little bit more in that kind of like self leadership and actually very useful in business too, is to sort of let go a little bit,
Yeah,
to be responsive,
yeah.
to be
And
trying
that's what
to.
I teach in parenting, to be responsive. So it's
Correct.
the same thing.
I'm sorry. Like, I think this is slightly selfish, but I want to ask you this question about the piano teaching again because that's just so interesting to me. How do you identify? When can a child be self-led in choosing their hobbies and things like language learning or music or sport, because these days children are starting these things at 3.
It cannot be coming out of them at 3.
At 3.
They want ice cream. They want to sit in mama's lap and be read a book. They want to play with daddy somersaults. They want to play with friends. They want to go to the zoo. They want to be swung. They don't want to accomplish something.
Yeah.
And that's part of talking about the future of parenting. That is very worrisome because we are programming and indoctrinating children at young age. So, but the answer to your question, when can they? When they do. It's up to the child. One child becomes passionate and interested in something at age 14 and another one at age 4. And it's like when they do, I follow and I provide. So I always say expose, but don't impose. So yeah,
Expose,
you
but don't
show them
impose.
what's available. So yeah, I take them to concert, to theater, to the zoo, to museums, to science games and things and experiments. I read them books. I sing them songs. We sing, we dance. We have friends. Social, different children to play with and opportunities and travel. There's so many things to expose the children to. But then I never told my children, 2 of them are professional musicians. I never told them that there's such thing as music lessons and you should take music lessons. Those words never came out of my mouth.
Okay.
We went to concerts. And at some point they came to me and said, I want to study violin. I want to study cello, and it's like, and then what I did is I didn't, it's not like, a lot of parents jump, oh, they asked for the lesson, go right away. And then the child can feel that there's almost a hysteria to grab the opportunity that the child said something that is academic or artistic that they want to learn or sports. Yes. And I did the opposite. I showed no interest and I did not call a teacher right away or to consult who to. I knew I have 2 musical prodigies, so I had to look for real good teachers, but I did nothing. My rule is wait for them to nag many times like they do for a candy.
Yeah.
Or for going on the swing or whatever. So I waited and they came the next day, Mama, did you find a teacher? And I said, oh, I'm glad you reminded me. I will. And I still didn't. I waited for the 3rd and the 4th time. And when it came, I finally did call and make an appointment. And then they were part of choosing the teachers. They were told they can quit anytime they want. They just have to let me know or change teacher or change instrument. But at the same time, I'm not saying that children shouldn't be responsible for their choices and have the discipline. like my kids did music. It's the same in dance, sport, whatever a child is passionate about. There is severe discipline if you want to get anywhere.
Yeah.
They have to want to get anywhere, right? So they ask for the lessons. I told them, I'll pay for the lessons. I'll drive you to the lessons. I'll write notes in the lessons so you don't have to waste the lesson time writing. Children write very slow. And the youngest one wasn't even writing yet. He was 6 years old. Uh, and your side of the agreement is you practice every day, and each lesson is 100% ready, which means everything the teacher told you practice, and you made progress. If after a while you don't like this teacher, you don't like this instrument, whatever, you're in charge. But you understand there is a responsibility. You made a choice. I'm paying, I'm driving you. You have to do what it takes.
Correct. I love that you set it out so clearly, that the initial process of even deciding as well, not the jumping in, and because the children do sense our anxieties or our wishes or projections and things like that, what we want them to do, right? Very, very easily. I mean, they have feelers for these things. But also, I love that also you said that, once they make the choice, you're going to have to have that talk with them about taking responsibility for the choice, which you gave them plenty time to do.
Yeah, no, I told them right away, even before the first lesson, what it means.
Yeah.
And when we drove back and we're on the boat, we live on an island, so there is a ferry ride too. It's a huge commitment to go for the lessons.
Yeah.
And on the way home, on their own, they said, I'm going to practice 3 times a day. Of course, in the beginning, they're more enthusiastic. It didn't stay 3 times a day, but it stayed daily. And each one authentically their way. One of them stayed very disciplined and practicing what the teacher told him in a very thorough way. And the other one, he just learned very, very fast. But after a couple of years, he didn't want to take violin lessons anymore. He was really a pianist on his own, could play anything by ear and improvise and compose. And then he came back to violin, and then he stopped, and then he came back. So he was, and each time he didn't practice as thoroughly, but with his talent, somehow magically made, at least technically, the progress. Musically, he wasn't developing as much, and that's his business. And my firstborn, he asked for violin lessons when he was 7 because we went to a concert of a violinist. And that's a good example of even if they quit. So he took lessons, very talented. Within half a year, he was playing Bach. He was playing what other kids take 5 years to get to. And his 3-year-old prodigy brother was accompanying him on the piano flawlessly, playing Bach together, right? And he played in tune. I mean, it was amazing. And then, so they played together. And after this, I think 7 months, he said, okay, I don't need lessons anymore. I said, well, what? You're doing so well. Why is it? I said, fine, we'll stop the lessons, but I'm curious. And he said, well, when we went to that concert, I was puzzled by how you can make such beautiful sound out of a wooden box. Now I have my answer. I don't need it anymore.
Okay.
For him, it was an experiment in physics. It wasn't that he was so drawn to music, very musically talented, but that wasn't his thing. So fine. So we quit. That was the end of it. I'm sure the teacher was very sorry to lose probably one of her best students. But
yes. And what was the journey for yourself at that point, as a young parent?
I was being a parent. A parent is a servant. And I don't mean a servant in a slavery way, but in a wonderful way, because serving is the best thing on earth. When you're not focused on yourself, but you're focused on others, and children are so awesome to focus on. It's such a relief not to be engaged with how I feel and, what does it do for me and what do I want and do I want a career? And, when all of that goes out the window and I get up every morning to see how this magical child and 3 children eventually, what they need next and what do I do with them next and just watch them. It was such a delight. I never I didn't even have a thought of what did I need for me. I actually ended up spending years not even playing piano, which is a big love of mine, because there was no time. And I got back to it when they were teenagers.
Well, for me, this actually boils down to the fact that maybe a lot of us here, and I speak for my generation or those especially in Asia, actually maybe even worldwide. You can let me know because you've met more parents than I have. We're going into it unconscious, that with the unconsciously with the question, what does this do for me?
Yeah.
You see,
when I counsel parents, that is a big one, because when they have a tantruming toddler or a defiant teenager, they take it about themselves often. When they call me, I help them realize that the moment they let go of themselves and focus on the child, which is what the first chapter in my book teaches. I have a formula called solve.
Solve, yeah.
Like a solve. And the S is exactly that, to first go internally about yourself, notice that you're being triggered, that there is a self-talk about, oh, my child shouldn't do that, or he shouldn't behave this way, or he should go to bed, or he shouldn't be doing this or that. And we get this anxiety or anger. And then when we do the process that I suggest on the S and shift our focus, and that's the A, the attention, on the child and what's going on for them, not for me, but for them, it's such a relief, and the clarity of how to respond is like this. It's very clear. The only reason we don't see how to respond is we're busy with our own emotions. So when I work with parents, I help them to unbusy themselves with themselves and actually develop some freedom to just see the child for what's going on for them. And then it's like, oh, he just needs a little more time to do his thing, to build some blocks. He's not ready for dinner. He's in the middle of something. Rather than commanding them dinner time, like, oh, I just need to, he answered back in that way, or he screamed, or he didn't come because I'm not noticing that he's busy. And that he too needs, if you have, I always say, treat your child as you would treat a revered adult. If an adult is in the middle of writing an email and your dinner is ready, you're not going to tell them, okay, stop what you're doing, come for dinner, right? Yeah. You would say, are you ready pretty soon? Because the dinner is ready. Let me know when you'll be ready. And you wait a little bit. You gave them an idea and they finish what they have to finish, and then they come for dinner, right? Well, treat children in the same way and you'll have a peaceful home.
Yes, that's right. And it's
well-behaved kids.
And well-behaved and self sort of, with responsibility as well. But I think the unhelpful ideas, for me, come from things like Mary Poppins.
Yes.
Which is such an entertaining musical, but that was how parenting was viewed.
Yeah.
In this entire generation, and we're several generations from that now, and it gets passed on. You see, so to undo those ideas really takes some awareness.
But we have to be compassionate with ourselves and learn. And my clients, when they come to me, that's what we work on: moving away from being the boss and the commander with the whistle to being a lover of your children, somebody who nurtures who they are in response to who they are, because they are already their own human being. They were born their own human being.
Yeah. I can already have a feeling of how liberating this can be the more we can practice that.
Yeah.
So those of you who are interested in wanting to know a little bit more about the solve formula, then of course go and get the book and continue reading with Naomi's articles as well, which she so generously provides on her website and on her Facebook page as well. We've talked about music or any kind of thing that they're interested in, and you've given us a touch of what it really means to allow the child to lead, because why do we do this? Actually, why do we allow the child to lead? Why don't we groom them? What
Well,
is
we have
the
known
ill
that
effect?
for thousands of years,
Mhm.
and all we have is wars and anxiety and depression. So, why keep doing what doesn't work?
Yeah.
Why oppress young human beings and force them to be who they're not when we can be adoring who they are,
Mhm.
revering who they are, and not being their boss, but not have a courthouse, but a love house. Not telling a child what to do, what to learn, means that they will follow the program, the blueprint that's in their head, which means they will follow what fits them the best.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you that when I say that, I know from experience of doing so many workshops and working with parents that right now, as I say that, some parents listening to the interview are saying, no, my child won't do anything. He'll just sit there and do nothing. But that's because he's been forced for a while.
Yeah.
So they need a break time. They don't believe you that you actually let them do and resource themselves. You already have a relationship of a boss and a follower or a slave or a small one and a big one of domination.
Mhm.
So that doesn't go out the window so quickly. The first reaction is wanting to just throw everything out the window and sit back. Plus, when you're forced for a long time, and the forcing can be very gentle. It can be through praise, manipulation through praise, through rewards, through, if you do this, I'll give you that. So I'm not saying that parents are doing something forceful in a physical bad way, but there's a lot of ways to coerce a child or to manipulate them into not being themselves. And when they're doing what they don't actually want to do, then when you stop commanding them and being the boss, they're going to take time out for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I've seen those who are already teenagers, you give them that kind of time transition. They would take even 2 years before they can recuperate their sense of self, their desire to learn. I mean, children love learning. That's all they want to do all day long. When they're toddlers, you are exhausted because they constantly ask you questions and tell you they want to try this and why this and why this and mama why this and daddy why does the cow meow moo and why is the butterfly on the flower and why is it raining and you go crazy like why and they want you to read the same page in the book and show it with the finger and read it 20 times and you're going crazy because they're so curious and they want to learn all that time. Then you put them in a school or in a home program where they have to learn, and naturally they lose that desire. The kids who are free in either free kind of schools or unschooling, homeschooling that allow and respect the children, they never lose it. They're just curious learners all the time. And it doesn't mean that they never spend whole days looking at the wall and doing nothing. That's a valuable time. And when you respect them, you don't doubt it. It's like what Einstein said, that daydreaming and imagination is more valuable than anything you'd learn in school.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
He says he owes most to his imagination. So, and having that kind of relationship between parent and child, it's beautiful relationship because the child isn't afraid of the parent or try to please them and appease them, but is actually totally free to love them. Parent is not somebody, oh, I'll get in trouble. Mommy will find out I didn't do the homework. But mommy is my ally. Daddy is my ally. Somebody that I'm happy that they know what I do want and what I did do and I didn't do. And it's not a problem. That's when, then the relationship between parent and child is just a love relationship, a total trust. Because if they can't trust the parent, if the parent is the police, that's a mixed bag. You're dependent on the parent for love and life and livelihood and food. And then you're also afraid of them. because you need to please them by learning something, that doesn't work. That creates a lot of stress in the relationship, and it creates difficult behavior. And then parents say, my child doesn't behave well, is defiant, he's grumpy, he's tantruming when he's young, he's rebelling when he's older. But that's because it's a mirror to how your relationship with the child is.
I love that you said that. And and also that you pointed out that when you're trying a new method, from going from punishment or incentivizing and then coming off that yourself, it's going to look funny for a while. There's going to be a detox period for a while, and you're going to have to be prepared for, and to prepare yourself for that, then at least prepares yourself for like the longer journey ahead, right?
Well, you have to work on yourself.
Yeah.
To be able to be the clearing
Mm-hmm.
for another human being to flourish, rather than the manager and the controller, to be the clearing where the child can unfold who he is or she is, not what you want them to be, but what he is or she is. We have to create the space and the setup that allows for that freedom and for that safety and for that emotional completion and freedom in every moment.
When you bring this up about children, I have met many adults who themselves are reliant on external motivation, right? So they themselves, or I myself at some point, was also having this thought, I'm going to relax, but I can't trust myself because I know I'll laze about all day, every day.
Right.
Then they don't dare to come out of the old way of driving themselves.
And they have to detox.
Yeah.
And they have to trust the parent. Remember, the parent all these years was the police or the loving but strict boss, and taking that and believing that the parent is now actually on their side in terms of how they feel, what they wish to do. But again, parents would ask, what if what they wish to do is drugs? But they wouldn't, not if you have good relationship with them and they have self-esteem and they're happy. So depending on how far away they are from being connected to themselves, if they're an older kid and for years and years, and depends on the level of what I call oppression with good intention, but it's still oppressive. So each child's level of sensitivity is different. You can find 12 years old who have been so oppressed that, yes, if you give them anything, they may, try things that are really bad for them. So that's what people call me for. How do I make the transition in a safe way? And sometimes I work with the kid themselves in order to prevent falling for addictions or eating disorders or depression or other things. But with the younger kids, usually the kid is ready. It's the parent that isn't ready. Mm-hmm. The child just, great, I'm free.
Yeah.
And the parent has a hard time with the child maybe sitting there not doing anything all day or riding their bike 24/7 for 3 months, which is fantastic for them, by the way. And it's a lot of learning and there's no problem with that. One of my children used to do the same thing from morning to evening in increments of 4 months. I just noticed after a while, it's always 4 months. Mm-hmm. Puzzles, 4 months. Piano, 4 months. Scooter, 4 months. Slugs collection, 4 months. Numbers and all kinds of scientific stuff, 4 months. Play-Doh. I mean, he would just go through periods, and it was approximately 4 months each. And some of them go, when they're older, a couple of years of devotion to one subject. It's scientifically, it's the best way to delve into anything. There's nothing wrong with it. They don't have to diversify their brains. They can diversify over 40 years. 4 years of this and 4 years of this. It doesn't have to be side by side. So people ask, well, what about reading and math? And I've seen children learning to read on their own, including my own. And just like they learn to talk, they want to. When we don't force it to them, force it on them, that's what they want to, because everybody else is reading and there are signs in the street and it's all over the place. So when they're connected to themselves, that's the main thing, be rooted in themselves, then they're happy. And when they're happy and they trust us, then they do what they need to do passionately. And they're motivated from inside. People say, oh, my son is not motivated, he's not doing homework, he's not doing math, he's not doing this. I said, well, he's riding his bike, right? I said, all day long. Yeah, he's motivated. There's no not motivated. He's motivated to play the ball game. He's motivated to ride the bike. He's motivated to play Monopoly with his brothers from morning to evening. Whatever they're doing, when it comes from inside, that's being motivated. In school, yeah, they're not motivated to sit at the desk and be, have some teacher, some person jabber in their head stuff they don't want to hear. But let them run outside to the swings and you'll see motivation. You can't be motivated. Let me motivate you. Go do something you hate to do. We'll see you.
I think our idea of motivating is basically, how do you get someone to do something they don't want to do, and how do you manipulate it? So ultimately, it's a level of manipulation in some way.
Absolutely, because we think if they're small and we're big, and they don't know where they're going, and if we don't force them to learn this now, then they'll grow up and won't be able to do it. It's not true. It's just proved itself. Kids who go to free schools where there's no requirements, kids who homeschool, unschool, and there are no requirements, they're the shining stars in universities. Or without universities, where they do their own businesses and are very, very successful.
Yeah, and it's really great to hear from a seasoned homeschooler about that, because that's been something on my mind, and also we have a few homeschooling followers as well on here. Yes. To kind of like see it on the other end. This is actually kind of covered one of the questions that I had, like real life examples of trusting the child. Well, the person, the human being,
Yeah. So here is an example. Let's talk about bedtime. A lot of parents that listen to interviews have younger children, but I'll give you an example of a toddler and an example of a 7 years old. So with toddlers, mothers constantly control bedtime. A lot of mothers are calling me or coming here to study with me and say, I'm feeling so flabbergasted every night. It takes 2 hours to put my daughter to sleep. And this was real families that were here. And I remember this woman who I said, well, let me watch what happens in the 2 hours. And it was a girl, a 3-year-old girl who was still breastfeeding too, which, wonderful mother. She breastfeed, they lay in bed, she breastfeed her. The girl is done with the breastfeeding. She gets up, she starts running around. This is 8 p.m. She starts the process. Then she comes back, she seems tired, she's all sleepy. She goes back to mommy, she breastfeed. Mommy tried to lullaby and, be in the dark and blah, 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 blah. The child doesn't stay in bed. She gets up, she runs around. She finally goes to sleep at 10 p.m. So the process took 2 hours. And I'm, observing. So the next day I told her, don't put her to bed. Just don't. Not at all. We're having a session, you and I. Let her do whatever she wants. If she wants to play with you, play with her. So the girl got a doll and started running around. She kind of, while the mother had a session with me, she played with her. She brought the doll, she brought a diaper for the doll, she took it back. She played all the roles and told her mother what to do and took it back. And she was running in circle, actually, in this room where we were having the session. At 10 p.m., like a clock, she climbed on mommy, latched on the boob, and fell asleep instantaneously. Now you can suffer for 2 hours, or you can live your life and let the child go to sleep when they go to sleep. And the other story of similar case, this woman that also struggled with her son, we got my own 3 years old was the model. because we were all in the dining room, both families, my clients and me and my husband and our children. And the young one, my 3 years old, was tired, but he didn't want to miss. You put children away to sleep while you're still partying, while the adults are awake or the older kids. And it's just like, I don't want to miss the fun. Why would I want to go to another room and be shut off in the dark? I mean, that's insane. So anyway, so a 3 years old who is tired but doesn't want to miss the fun, stay where the fun is. And eventually he's on the floor, sound asleep like a stone. He fell asleep. He learned, I know to put myself to sleep. I just like wherever I am, I go to sleep. No big deal. Because we never put children to sleep. They're not packages. We don't put them anywhere, and we don't control their sleep. And then they become sound sleepers. My sons are very sound sleepers. They don't have sleep problems. So the woman, the mother, took him in her arms. He was so sound asleep, he didn't wake up. She sat down, she's holding him, and she says, "Oh my God, he's sound asleep." And my husband said to her, "Our kids eat when they're hungry and sleep when they're tired. It's simple. It's like Zen." Because we don't get in their way. They know when they're hungry. They know when they're tired. They learn this way to sense their own tiredness. And they choose freely where they want to fall asleep. And in this case, he didn't want to go sleep in another room. So he never said, "I'm tired." Because my kids would say, "I'm tired. I want to go to sleep." But there were guests. He knew that I wouldn't go with him to another room because I was counseling. And he just fell asleep. So that's total respect. And you have to respect them all the way from utero. Don't bombard them with ultrasound, which, by the way, causes emotional problems and developmental problems, as one example. And in the other example of bedtime of an older child, I promised to go for the older child. The child, there were 3 children in the family, and the father is the one who told me the story. He said, "He drove me nuts. I called him again and again. I said that his sisters are already in the family bed. They were sleeping all together. And I'm already reading a book to his sisters and that he should come to bed because he has to get up early for school tomorrow." And he didn't come and he didn't answer. He was painting, doing some art. So eventually the father went down there and picked him up and took him to the bathroom and say, "Now you have to get ready." And he closed the bathroom door. He went back to read books for the girls, and time ticking and time ticking and time ticking, and he's not coming out of the bathroom. Eventually, the man is flabbergasted, and he opened the door a crack to the bathroom to see what's going on, and the child is laying on his back singing. Didn't even start getting ready for bed. Not in pajama, no nothing. Just singing on the bathroom floor. I have an article by that name that was published in the magazine. Singing on the bathroom floor. So I work with a father like this to have him realize where he started not respecting his child. Oh, and I have to say, at that point, the father was angry and he burst out and the child cried, and now bedtime took 10 times longer because everybody was upset. Child was crying, and it was another whole hour before he went to sleep, only asleep, upset and angry and feeling bad about himself. So the father asked, "Well, what should I have done instead?" And I said, "It's really simple. Let's talk at each stage of the way. Stage 1, he was drawing or painting, doing art. You tell him that he has to get up. That's talking like a dictator. You have to go to bed now. Why don't you just, like if it was an adult, do it his email? I'm with your sisters in bed already reading. How much more time do you need? Or as soon as you're done with your drawing, let me know if you need help in the bathroom and then come to bed." The child would have finished the drawing. It would have been a lot faster than the big drama that they had. And come to, we just respected him. But let's say he failed that part of the test. Okay, that's all right. Parents are not perfect. So I always like to work on, let's say you failed this one. So let's say you took him to the bathroom and told him, "Get ready." And now you're finding him singing on the bathroom floor. My reaction to the singing of the bathroom floor, I laughed. And I was thinking, oh my God, he's probably very upset And I did some work with his father, so he got to understanding that on his own. I don't tell people, I help them realize it. But what their realization was, the child was very upset with his father naturally. And he is doing self-therapy, singing to himself and calming himself down, because you can't go to bed tired. It's not that he's thinking all of that. The magic of children is that the program is so healthy. Yeah. It's like, naturally, what do? I'm alone in the bathroom here, my father, and I'm angry with my father, etc. And he does a therapy for himself, and he's saving time on lullabies. He's already doing the lullabies. He's calming himself down. So the father could have just then gone in and or just closed the door and let him finish this thing. He would have come, he would have been done singing, and then he would be calm and he would get ready for bed. Or the father suggested I could have joined him. It depends on who the child is. Joining can work or not. Can be disrespectful or very welcome. So you have to sense whether the child would want that. Now that they were angry with you, all of a sudden you are a butterfly and coming and singing with me. It depends on the child nature and the feeling is going on. But either way, no need for fight. And the father, like what I said before, his mistake was being about himself. Like the child is defying me. No, the child is about himself. The child wanted to finish the picture. If you let him finish the picture, none of this would have happened. If you just told him we're in bed, etc. And then when you made a mistake of putting himself in the bathroom, kindly enough, instead of slamming the door on your face and having a tantrum and hurting you, or like some kids could do, he is giving himself therapy and relieving himself with the stress that you created. What a blessing. What a wonderful kid, amazing, magical. I mean, it's like, oh my God, look at my kid. He's, instead of being angry at me and upset, he's just singing himself to sleep. He's just calming himself down. Or he could have just, when he opened the door, say, oh, let me know if you need help, and close the door back, just peacefully. Or just say, I'm sorry that I took you before you were finished. Apologize. There are lots of possibilities how to connect in that moment.
Yeah. There are so many things, and I just really don't like to interrupt you so much, because it just keeps coming. But then there are a few things that I just want to highlight here, is that I think we go into it like you said, the number one message that we started off the interview was that it's so much about ourselves. Like, this child is defying me, or what kind of parent am I if my child is not listening to me? And those sentences are very clearly, now after speaking with you, are all about ourselves and not about the child. And so to be able to notice that itself can be such a root of a lot of the issues that come up. And another question that I had was, how do you do chores, or how do you do these non-negotiable things like brushing teeth and wearing their seat belts?
It's not non-negotiable. It's just that it's not about negotiation, it's about respect.
Yeah.
For example, the seat belt, the car seat. Why is the child going in the car? If it's not something they want to do, why should they be strapped into a car seat for your errands? That's not respectful. Would you do that to your friend if they didn't want to? If they want to stay and practice their piano, would you say, no, you have to come with me, I have to go shopping? And they have to be bored in a car and strapped in a seat in traffic for your sake? And we do that to children. That's very disrespectful. But if the child is going to the playground and you have to drive 5 minutes to get there, they will buckle up because they want to go. So it has to be their project, not yours. And, parents would say at this point, well, sometimes you have to go. Yes, absolutely. And I tell you one thing, if you always respect your child, and 90% of the time life flows for them and they don't have to surrender their own autonomy, then in those times that you have to go. And if you present it in a respectful way, I know you want to stay at home and I don't have anybody to stay with you and I must go to the doctor or I must go get this. So I'm sorry, but I need you to go with me. The child would say, no problem, Mom, of course. Because their life go their way and they see your generosity in setting it up this way. They want to be the same way. They come naturally wanting, yeah, I'll sit there, because you need to go to the doctor. I'll go with you. That's fine. And then you don't have all these problems. But the car seat thing, the problem is parents start too young when the child doesn't have a voice yet to say, I want to go or I don't want to go. So let me tell you, babies don't want to go, period. So don't put them in a car seat unless somebody can relate to them the whole ride and make it pleasant. I mean, in the very early days, you could probably ride with them. They have no idea what's happening, right? And they can face the other way and you put some music on and you sing and, But when they start noticing things and they don't want to be in the car seat, don't go with them by yourself. If you need to go somewhere, take your husband with, take your mother-in-law, take your mother, your father, somebody else to drive so you can face your baby. And I tell you, I breastfed on rides. When my husband drives and the baby can be in the car seat and you can get the boob into their mouth. There are other techniques you can do that I don't want to encourage, but I've done all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Moving, and you can stop the car when needed as well to change a diaper but the problem is the child have a conditional reflex. If as babies we force them into this horror of being strapped and body unable to move in this moving car with the noise and mommy's back of the head or daddy's back of the head not really relating, it's horror for them. They hate it. Of course they cry, unless they fall asleep. If you do it in a timing that they'll fall asleep, maybe you can accomplish something that way. But then you can't leave them in the car, so you can't do your errand.
That's major food for thought, because obviously with modern parenting, there are so many things that are normalized.
Yes.
When actually if you're aware and you think about it, it's not very nice things to do.
No.
There are too many things that are actually normalized here.
Somebody told me yesterday that they've seen parents who change diaper and give screen to the baby. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Or eating with screens is a very common one that we see around here.
That's horrible. That's like saying that the screen is more important than human connection. Changing diaper is the time to go, and give a kiss and eye contact. And you don't have to change it that quickly. It's fun. You get that little good smelly baby and, the cleanup. It's time for a relationship, not for putting them on screen because, where are we going as human beings?
Yeah, it's got to the let's get it done kind of thing, and it kind of helps to go into the next question. First, I want to summarize what we've been talking about as well, and what spoke to me was that all these problems and the pushback that comes with a child doing chores and seatbelt, brushing their teeth, and all that. When that's happening, is actually more of a symptom of the general respect that we're giving the kids, right? I mean, that's what you said. Zoom back. It's not about how do I get my child to do the chore, zoom back and say, well, why are they pushing back? Like, why do they have to feel like they have to push back at this thing that's actually good for them?
How can we raise kids who do what's best for themselves and are considerate of others of their own free will, not because they're afraid of me, not because they're seeking my praise or approval in any way, not that they're dependent, like a lot of us become dependent on approval because we were dependent for feeling all right as children on our parents' approval by either not being angry with us or praising us, rewarding us, good boy, good girl, good job, and all this manipulative language that we take for granted and we think we're being nice. But it's not helpful at all, because I want the child to do it not because somebody said good job, but because they're pleased with themselves and they want to do it.
Absolutely. And that's
And
an
if they
interesting,
don't, then they shouldn't do it.
yeah. But the kids, you see, here I'm thinking the kids don't live in a bubble. And so, yes, you've got your family. I think the family background and the family languaging, messaging, and everything makes most of the difference, no matter what relatives or aunties or uncles or whoever else might say. But there are still relatives and aunties and uncles that are quite influential on the child. What is your take?
Well, I totally think that the relationship between parent and child almost neutralize anybody else,
Yeah.
especially if they talk about it. I find that when my children and children of clients of mine encounter that out there in the world, people behave differently, we talk about it.
Mm.
It's like, the parents are so and so, they're yelling at them and telling them what to do. And we just say, yeah, some parents do that. We believe that you are the only one in charge of yourself. You're an autonomous human being, so we don't believe in doing that. But we also discuss that there are times where you have to follow instructions, but you choose the context. If you go to a theater, you follow the instructions. You have to sit quietly. My children could sit quietly in restaurant and in theater at age 3, 2. They had no problem with that. So
And the
they did
context is that they had some kind of choice in going in the first place.
went there because they wanted to be there. They got excited about, oh, it's a concert. Everybody sits quietly and then we clap when they end. The whole experience was like something they wanted to blend with and be part of, right? Or going to restaurant. I never took them to restaurants after a car ride, being trapped, but made sure they're in a playground for a few hours before we do, that they can be loud as much as they want and moving as much as they want, that they choose if to go to a restaurant and which restaurant to go to, and that it's a restaurant that has some outdoor place to play until the food is ready. So it's like, that's what I always tell parents, make the setup conductive, conditions that the child can flourish in. Don't take the child to a toy store and tell them we're not buying anything. That's cruel.
Yeah.
Or take them on shopping with you. I didn't take my children shopping. It's too much stimulation, and you have to tell them no all the time, or else turn them into consumers addicts.
Yeah. I mean, set them up correctly. And if I think about it as well myself, like I wouldn't go to, a candy store or some shops and stuff. I will get tempted myself,
Exactly. Parents do that, and they try to, they use candy as seduction for control. If you do this, I'll give you that. I'll give you candy. Or when they behave the way we want, then we give them something. But that teaches them, that detaches them from the self. And then we're surprised when they're teenagers, when they're suicidal or depressed or anxious. Well, years of trying to please the others and live up to expectations makes one very anxious. How do I know what they are expecting of me? Who am I? And there is this detachment of the self. A confident person is a person who knows themselves and who acts from inside, not from trying to please others, in consideration of others as they mature and are able to take the need of others into account, but not to please others. I'm not practicing my piano so my mother is pleased.
This brings me back to really the care of the parent, because we have come from generations of a certain kind of normalized way.
Yes.
And if not aware, this carries on, and this brings us these problems, and we're sometimes baffled. I'm doing all the right things according to this book. I'm doing all the right things according to how my parents parented me, for example, right? Or how society is, justifying it, right? The parent is at a really strange position unless they choose to say, hey, there's a different way, but not many do.
Yeah. Well, but the biggest gift a parent can give to the child, the absolute biggest gift, is to work on themselves.
Yeah.
And to not be perfect. And to not, I call it, be imperfect out loud. So don't hide it from your child. Don't pretend to be perfect, because then the child tries to live up to the expectation and be perfect like you, and they can't. And they become depressed or anxious. So it's good for them to see an imperfect parent, and it's good for them to see a parent who speaks about their own imperfection. Oh, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that to you. Or I shouldn't have restricted you here. I'm sorry I didn't just get more of the Play-Doh so everybody can have it, instead of being angry at you that you took it from your sister. So just to be real, we're imperfect human beings. And our children are going to turn into imperfect human beings. Nobody is going to be flawless without any issues. I always ask big crowds of people, and I have up to more than 1,000 at a time. And I say, anybody here turned out perfect? Nobody raises their hand, right? Anybody has perfect parents? Nobody raises their hand, except one time one guy raised their hand. And I told him at the end of the workshop, you wouldn't think so anymore, but stick with us and then see. Well, because a young adult, he was quite young, and they can be stuck in, how the mind wants to be right always.
Yeah.
So a young person can be self-righteous about my parents are perfect, and they don't want to ruin that.
Yeah.
Right? So once he spent time with me in the workshop, etc., and relieved the anxiety over, my parents don't have to be perfect for me to adore them and love them and respect them.
Mm.
In fact, it's more human that they're not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, but for the parents, the greatest gift you can give your child is work on yourself. And that's the nature of my work. What I do when parents come here for a few days, or when they call and do a Zoom session, usually most of them read the book first, but not always, is I work with them on healing their own wounds and on being able to be emotionally free so they don't have all these triggers, so that they can actually notice the child, so they can make mistakes and go back and correct them. One of my tricks is methods that I teach is rewind. Do the same scene again, like you did it wrong, and you go, you know what? Can we start again when I enter the house? And I want to do this scene again. So you go back to that corner. You were with your Legos, and you were with your crayons, and the two of you, blah, 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 and I enter the house. Give me a second chance. Let's do the same thing. You say the same thing when I enter, and I'm going to try something else. And children love that. They love giving a second chance. They totally love that. And then learn to apologize when you do it wrong, and to listen. The magic words of Naomi Aldort is, tell me more. Mommy, I hate you. Tell me more. Not, never say that. This is horrible. He's experiencing something. It's real for this little fellow or girl, right? She's feeling very painful emotion. The mother or father that she loves, she has this ambivalent, horrible feeling that she also hates. That has to be expressed, healed, and you need to learn what it is that causes it, so you would change your ways too.
I feel like parenting has, we all think like, oh, self-development, and yeah, we're good, we attend courses and we improve our careers. Like, I feel like being a parent was just like the major self-development push ever for me anyway.
Yes.
Like,
but only if you do it. See, if you keep trying to keep your sensitivities and push the child to not push your buttons, then you're just passing on to suffering, because now you're doing this to your child and you're not healing your wounds. So you want children who push your buttons. You want husbands and wives who push your buttons. Because anytime you're angry, the anger based in a thought that isn't true. The child should stop drawing and come to bed, like that father with the child that was drawing, right? That's a lie. A child will be tired tomorrow in school if he doesn't go to sleep this minute. Half an hour later, he'll still be all right anyway. And plus, if he's tired, he'll learn his lesson. It's all good. Mm-hmm. But we believe a lie based on our past experiences, traumas from childhood, etc., etc. So when I work with parents, we go all the way deep to the dark places in ourselves. Mm. if necessary, right? To see, why am I reacting this way? Why am I annoyed with the child rather than see that, oh, he's just needing this? Because parents get annoyed, upset, and then they act on the upset rather than what's going on for the child. What can I do to resolve this issue? What do they actually need that they do that?
And at this point, I want to sort of congratulate everyone for staying with us up till this point, because it shows that you are not here for the quick fix. We're not, watching a future parenting summit to get quick fixes. Although there has been a few gems that Naomi has brought across, some lovely things about repair and how to rewind. And we're looking for quick fixes because we feel time strapped.
Yes.
And it's funny, it's a paradox, because when you spend that little bit more time,
actually
overall is quicker, right? I mean, that's what I was trying to say. Thanks for that.
Yeah, like that bedtime story, if you just let him finish the drawing, it would have been much faster than all the other that took place.
And, as myself, I'm a mom of really young kids, and it takes a little bit of experimenting with these ideas that maybe for us are new. But when you experiment and give the flex and the birth to experiment with it, and then you realize, oh, actually, it was all okay. And then really build on that. I think that can be really a fun thing to do. I mean, the main point is that, investing in the parent care and the help with ourselves rather than just trying to fix the kids first is
There's
one
nothing
of the
to fix
things. There's nothing to fix. Yeah, exactly.
It's just a mirror.
Yeah.
What you're doing. Yeah.
So were there any parting thoughts that you wanted to share with us as we draw to a close?
Well, I think this last question of yours and what we said is a good parting one. But maybe one sentence is, the problem with making a child do what we want, no matter how good it is and how good it is for their education or future, is that it's destructive to who they are, and it's who they are that matters in what they're able to do in life. So the most important is that the child does everything he does or she does from themselves, not for you. So I call it, the child must stay rooted in herself. Yeah. So that the autonomy, the doing it from inside. So my child should sleep by themselves. He's 2 years old. Not if he wants to sleep with you, and all 2 years old want to sleep with their parents. So I don't recommend they sleep by themselves, but they're here and there, they want some space most of the time. So the question they ask, wouldn't they never be independent this way? I say the opposite. Their own idea, I want to sleep with my parents, is the one that they're doing. So they get to do what they feel. So they're rooted in themselves. Yeah. So now they're independent because they learn how I feel inside is right. Yeah. And we don't want to go against it. We want to support how I feel inside is right.
The paradox of independence. I mean, the wrong understanding that we have about it. Yeah.
Yes, and I want to be very careful with that, because how I feel inside is right for a child is not the same as for adult, because how you feel inside may be right, but it may be a complicated distortion as a result of trauma and childhood issues. Mm. So, and I just taught you to do the opposite when it comes to your own reactions, and to heal your reactions and focus on the child. But with the child, really their initial reaction, unless you taught them to react with, oh no, he hurt my feeling, she hurt my feeling, that's a whole new subject. So I don't want to go there. But the child should be rooted in themselves. Don't extract them out of themselves in order to meet some agenda that you think is better. The best is for the child to follow their own blueprint. That's rooted in herself. That's the optimal development is going to come from there.
Absolutely. And that gives me the analogy of a tree, and a tree that has good roots doesn't fall easily.
Exactly.
Yeah. So beautiful. I really enjoyed spending this time with you, Naomi, and thank you for your generosity of time. And thank you all for listening. I'm so glad that you all could be here with us. Definitely check out all the links, and we'll use this time now to say goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.